Do you prefer Unix-like systems over Windows? So this is a bigger general topic. This is probably the most frequently asked topic that I get. It was, did Unix developers, did Windows developers at Microsoft know about Linux? Did they look at Linux? Did they use Linux? Did they take feature ideas from Linux? And so on and so forth. I get a lot of these questions, and the answer by and large is no. Now, there were a number of us, like myself. I started using Linux in 1992. I was really fascinated. I liked Xenix, I liked BSD, but for some reason I couldn't get a copy of BSD, and Xenix was commercial. So I had a friend that actually had a PDP-11 in their dining room in their house. Well, instead of their dining room furniture, they had a PDP-11. And I always had Unix envy because of that. And I really wanted to set something up. And so when I got the opportunity to do so with Linux, I was in there like a dirty shirt. The thing is, back then, if you could build it, deploy it, and boot it, that was pretty heroic. I did manage to do so, but I don't remember how long it took to do it. What I wound up with was a pretty limited Unix-like system, because Linux in the very early days was pretty limited. I remember sitting down with the System 5 Release 4 manual, the big monster book, and going through and just finding what worked and what didn't, and annotating in my book and keeping track of that kind of thing. So I was pretty interested in it, and that's largely a function of having been at college at the time. And because everything we did was basically PDP-11 stuff, and VMS was just used for a few things, most of the hardcore CS stuff was still done on PDP for some reason. And that meant we were all pretty good with Unix-like stuff and C and so forth in this particular school. When I got to Microsoft, you could tell almost nobody used it whatsoever. On the server side, they certainly, the PMs on the server side, obviously, were very familiar with Unix from the enterprise standpoint in order to be competitive with it or target features and so on. But in terms of desktop, since I was in the UI shell team, it's not like there was really anything going on in the Linux desktop space that we were like, wow, I never thought of that. You know, they had icons, and it was really basic. If you look at Red Hat in the 90s, I think Red Hat was the distribution I probably saw the most of back then. So maybe it's Fedora, Red Hat. Are they the same thing? Is that the company and the product? Those are the two names I remember anyway. So I don't think there was a lot of awareness, but of the people that mattered, there was respect for Linux, and there was an understanding of what it did well. And certainly on the operating system side, they were familiar with it, and they targeted it, and they ran benchmarks, and we did that. We went to meetings where they would bring up, here's how fast it is to do this file operation set 1 million times under Linux, or under some other Unix, actually wasn't Linux. And here it is under Windows, and it depends if you write the code using NT-create file versus fopen is really what it comes down to. Do you have an abstraction layer in between? And that's something I actually just produced a video on, wherein I go through and produce a custom a custom Linux kernel and deploy it to my machine and show you how to go through and do that. And so that'll be out on Monday or Tuesday following this video.